Hello YouTube, welcome back. Chris here. I want to talk to you about lube. Well, a short video about lube. I'm not going to go too in depth because there's lots of different things we can talk about when we talk about lubricating a bicycle chain. But I do want to do a brief video here on the difference between a wet lube and a dry lube. I get asked this all the time working at the bike shop. People don't really understand the difference from the one from the other. So I wanted to kind of just get a quick explanation here of why you might want to use one over the other and what the difference is. You can see I have these. These are Finish Line products, wet and dry. I just use them because they're popular and they're good lube. But there are tons of different brands that make both a wet and dry. There's brands that make just wet. There's brands that make dry. And this is by no means the only types of lube. There's ceramic lubes. There's wax lubes. There's infinite different kinds of lube you can use. But these two are probably the most common, and they're the most commonly asked as what the difference is, so I want to explain them. In our Finish Line Dry here, I have this on a piece of white paper, and I'm going to use that to demonstrate kind of why these lubes are different. So if we go ahead and open this one up and just make a nice little line here of lube, you can see it's very light. It's almost like a watery consistency. It soaks right into the paper. It's not a very heavy lubricant. I mean, if I put this on my finger here, it's not real oily. This is kind of going to dissipate. It's going to dry up in a little bit. It's not near as messy as what you'll see is when I do a wet lube. So if I take my wet lube, do the same thing, you'll see it keeps a nice bead. It's thick. It's very thick. So if I touch this on my finger here, bring it up to the camera, you can see that consistency. It's a real heavy lube. Now, why would you use one over the other is what most people ask. My philosophy is any lube is good lube. What's most important is that you're doing it and you're doing it the right way. I'm going to post a video in the future here on the proper way to lubricate your chain, because lubricating your chain improperly can almost do more harm than not lubricating it at all. But first off, let's just talk about the difference here and why you might like one or the other. Dry lube is typically a little cleaner. It doesn't pick up as much debris because it's thinner. It soaks down in the chain, and it doesn't grab all the dirt and grime off the trail. It gets kicked up onto your chain. Wet lube will grab a little bit more debris. So that's why it's very important that if you're going to use that kind of lube, you really do your homework and learn how to use it right. You know, getting it down in the chain, wiping it completely off when you're done so that the lube is in the chain, not just on the chain. But anyway, as long as you're doing it properly, either one will work fine. A lot of times they like to call wet lube like mountain bike lube or all condition lube. I don't really agree with that philosophy. I think they're both good for both. It just depends on what kind of person you are and your lubricating habits. If you're the kind of person who puts lube on, all the time and isn't real clean with it, real sloppy, and they're getting it all over their drivetrain, definitely use a dry lube. You're going to make a huge mess with a wet lube. When you see a bike that has a completely black chain and black drivetrain, that's a sign that they used a wet, heavy lube and they didn't do it right. So a dry lube is a little more dummy proof. It's not going to let you make that big a mistake. You can still make a mess with it, but not near as big a mess as with wet lube. Now, personally, I like to use wet lube. Why do I like to use wet lube? Well, because I'm a bike mechanic and I'm super anal with my stuff. So I know I'm doing it the right way and I'm not going to make a big mess. I also know that if I'm in season riding a lot, I'm going to be cleaning and lubricating my drivetrain at least once a month, if not 2 or 3 times a month, in which case it doesn't matter if I get it a little sloppy. I mean, I'm going to be cleaning it pretty regularly. I'm not going to let it go all summer and build up dirt and grime and grind away at all the metal components. So I like wet lube, but there's no right or wrong way to do it. Everyone has their own opinion as to what to use. If you like the dummy-proof one, you use the dry. If you like a thinner lube that doesn't gunk up your drivetrain, you use the dry. But if you like a nice heavy lube that really does a good job lubricating, you might use the wet. So I hope that kind of explains the difference here. I will be doing more videos on lube in the future. It's a big subject with me. I like talking about all the different types of lube and how to do it properly. So I'll definitely be putting a few more videos out about lubrication in the future. But just a quick breakdown of wet versus dry. I hope this is helpful. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any other things to add to that or any suggestions or anything I got wrong. Thanks again.